the attack on the family started a lot sooner than people think. One of the first attacks on the family that happened in the US anyway was the idea of the so-called nuclear family that happened in the post-war period. It was basically to make a bunch of money for housing developers. So at the end of World War II, you had all these people that were coming back from the war who were either already married or getting married. They're having children. There was the baby boom. And so the idea was presented by housing developers. Well, you've got all this land, so why don't we make these suburban communities and basically give subsidized single family homes to everyone? Well, in order to do that, they also had to present the idea that a real family was not the multi generational family that human beings had always had up until that point, where you would have a household, whether it was a single home or multiple smaller homes in a very, very close proximity, like walking distance, that would have the children, the parents, but also the grandparents, even the great grandparents, or even the great great grand, like everyone there, cousins, uncles, everything else. That was replaced with the idea that, well, actually the family is two parents, 2.3 children or whatever. That's a family. And the reason they did that was to maximize the amount of homes that were being sold. Now, what happened was that was the first separation, generational separation of the family that happened by and large. And that made it easier. Now, when you're removing the family, you're not having to remove your connection with grandparents, great grandparents, cousins, uncles, everything else. It's really just your parents. That's really all they have to remove, is the parents and the kids, because they've already made that other separation. It made it exponentially easier for them to do the assaults on the concept of the family. And we see now where, even on both sides, people are insistent that if you raise your kids this way, you're bad and the government should stop you. Well, no, that is the final assault on the family, which is parenthood. And if you remove that, and if you make it where the government is essentially the parent, that and elimination of ownership are really all it takes to make people entirely devoted and dependent on the state. Devotion comes from dependence.